All right, this is Mrs. Naslin, and today we'll be doing Unit 5, Lesson 8, Practice one-digit by three-digit multiplication. Our learning targets today are, I can multiply one-digit numbers by three-digit numbers. I can use the shortcut method, the standard multiplication algorithm, and I can estimate products of one-digit and three-digit numbers. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to compare the two methods that we've practiced so far. The first method we used was the area method, where we drew these boxes and then we wrote out the numbers. Now we only did it with two-digit by one-digit, but this time I'm showing you one of three-digit example. So first I look at our problem, 237 times 4, and you'll see that I pulled out how many hundreds I have. I've got 200. I pulled up my tens, and I pulled up my ones, and I multiplied each of those by 4. This is showing the same thing. So when I do 4 times 200, I get 800. When I do 4 times 30, I get 120. When I do 4 times 7, I get 28. Then I added all those together, and I got 948. So that's the first method we used. The second method we used, we only did it with two digits again, and we'll practice it with three digits in a second. But you'll see they multiplied 4 times 7, and they got 28. Put the 8 here. And they regrouped the 2, and then they did 4 times 3, they got 12, and they added the 2, so they got 14, so they put the 4 in the tens place, and they regrouped the 1 into the hundred spot, and then they multiplied by hundreds. 4 times 2 is 8, plus the 1 is 9, and they got the same answer of 948. So let's compare these two. How are the solutions similar? Well, I think the biggest thing that's similar about them is that we got the same answer, and we started with the same problem. We got the same answer in the two of them. How are they different? I think the big difference I see is the number of steps that you had to go through. If you look at the work that you did here, and then you look at the work you did here, you'll see that the second method, which is our standard method, is actually a lot shorter to do. And for that reason, the second method that you learned is often called the shortcut method. It's the method that ends up being easier to do as you get to bigger numbers when you go to calculate multiplication. So using that, let's kind of break up the shortcut method with three digits. We're going to go through the steps. We did the same thing with two digits. It's nothing different. It's just that we have to regroup one more spot over to get to that hundred spot. So let's look at this example. We're going to break it down. Okay, we did that 4 times 7. We got 28. So we put the 8 in the 1 spot, and we regrouped the 2 into the 10 spot. Okay, good. Then step 2 here. Now we're going to move over into the 10 spot. So we did 4 times 3, which gave us 12. We couldn't forget to add that 2. So we added that 2, which gave us 14. So we put the 4 in the tens column, and we'll go ahead and write the 1 above the hundreds column. And then we moved on to step 3. And in step 3, we go ahead and multiply the 4 times the hundreds column. So we get 8 plus that 1, which is 9, and then we write it into the hundreds column. So we get the answer of 948. So let's go ahead and practice the multiplying by a three-digit by one-digit a couple of times. I'm going to do one or two of these, and then I'll let you practice a couple on your own as well. So let's go ahead and start with 349 times 6. 349 times 6. So first, I'm going to do the ones column. 9 times 6 is 54. So I'm going to write 4. Put the 5 above the tens column. All right, now I'm going to do 6 times 4. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 5 is 29. And the 2 above the hundreds column. And now I'm doing 6 times 3, which is 18, plus those 2, which gives us 20. So my answer is 2094. All right, let's go ahead and try this one now together, and then we'll have you do it by yourself. So again, I do the ones column first. 9 times 8, which would give us 72. We'll put the 7 above the 10 spot. 9 times 6, which would give us 54, plus 7 would give us 61. All right, and then we do 9 times 7, which would give us 63, plus 6 more, which would give us 69. We got 6,912. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and have you go ahead and try this next one on a sheet of paper, and then we'll come back and we'll do it together. All right, so let's see how you did. 7 times 2 is 14. So we put the 4 here. The 1 goes above the tens. 7 times 3 is 21. Plus 1 is 22. All right, 6 times 7 would give us 42. Plus 2 would give us 44. So you should have got 4,424. All right, let's do the last one here. Go ahead and do this one on your sheet of paper, and then we'll compare answers. All right, let's see how you did. 5 times 3 is 15. I put the 1 over the 10 spot. 3 times 1 is 3, plus the 1 would give us 4. And then 4 times 3 is 12. So you should have ended up with 1,245. All right, the last thing that we're going to talk about is rounding and estimating with hundreds and tens. So we're going to look at this problem here. We're going to look at estimating the product of 4 times 369. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to round it up to the hundreds. Again, I looked at the number behind it here. And 6 is greater than 5, so I'm going to try rounding it up. So I'm going to go 4 times 400. All right. So when I do that, I would end up with, I do my 4 times 4, which gives me my 16. I add my 2 zeros on there, so I'd get 1,600. Now what if I went down? What if I did 4 times 300? All right, well, my 4 times 3 would give me 12. I'd add my 2 zeros on there, so I get 1,200. It says, which one of these two estimates will be closer to the actual solution? That's a great question. So remember, I went to 400 and I went to 300. So the one that's going to be the closest is the one that's closest to that number. So in this case, we were almost at 370, so this was about 30 away when I went to 400. But when I went to 300, I was about 70 away. So the one that would have been the closest for me was the 400, because it's the closest number to that solution. All right, so now it wants us to go ahead and calculate the actual solution. So we'll do 369. I don't have my nice little chart here, but that's okay. 369 times 4. All right. So 9 times 4 gives us 36. So I'll put my 6 here in the 1 spot. Carry my 3 in the 10 spot. 6 times 4 is 24. 25, 26, 27. Carry my 2 to the 100 spot. 4 times 3 is 12. 13, 14. So the actual solution was 1,476. So it says, explain why neither estimate is very close. So we were at 1,600 and we were at 1,200, and the actual answer was 1,476. Why weren't they very close? That's a great question. Well, 369 is far away from both 300 and 400 and multiplying. So it probably would have been better if I would have found, if I kind of would have estimated halfway in between these two solutions. So halfway between 600 and 200, but about 400. So if I would have said 1,400, I would have had a much closer answer to the correct. And the reason I knew that is that 369 is a lot closer to that 350 mark, halfway in between the two, than it is to either being 400 or 300. So sometimes you might have to kind of estimate in between to try to find the closer estimate. All right, so let's go ahead and try this one on your own. All right, so we're going to do, first we're going to do 6 times 300, which we got is 1,800. Now you'll notice that it was actually at 9. So instead, let's try doing 6 times 10, because we know that from what we learned with our area model that I can break it apart a little bit. So if I pretended this was 310, if I did 6 times 310, I could break it apart. I could do 6 times 10, which would give me 60. And we already figured out that 6 times 300 was 1,800. So if we added our 1,800 plus 60, if I added on 1,800 to this, of course I don't have room up here, but if I added on 1,800, then I would have ended up with 1,860, which would be a closer estimate to what we originally had. So in this lesson we learned about 3-digit by 1-digit multiplication, and we also learned about estimating rounding and estimating to the tens and the hundreds place.